Imagine a hospital room so quiet you can hear the faint beep of machines, the kind of stillness that weighs heavy on your chest. That's where we find Ethan Parker, an 8-year-old kid with a mop of brown hair, fighting a battle no one thought he could win. His parents, Sarah and Michael, sit there clutching each other's hands, while doctors whisper words like terminal and hopeless. It's the kind of scene that breaks you, until you meet Charlie, Ethan's golden retriever, who's about to turn despair into something straight out of a miracle. See, while the experts threw in the towel, this dog, he wasn't ready to give up on his boy. Stick around because this story's gonna tug at your heartstrings and maybe even make you wonder about the magic hiding in those furry friends we love so much. Now picture this: a sterile white room, the air thick with antiseptic and unspoken fears. Ethan's just a little shadow under the sheets, his breath shallow, his parents' eyes red from crying. But there's Charlie, sitting by the bed, his golden fur catching the dim light like a beacon. He's not just a pet, he's Ethan's guardian, and what happens next? Well, it's the kind of thing that makes you believe in something bigger. Ever had a dog look at you like they get it? That's Charlie, and he's about to do the impossible. This isn't your average tale of a boy and his dog. No, this one's got mystery, loyalty, and a bond that defies explanation. You're gonna see a hospital transform from a place of endings to a stage for something supernatural. And trust me, by the time we're done, you'll be hugging your own pup a little tighter. So, let's step into that room where the air's heavy and the stakes are high, because Charlie's about to show us what love really looks like. There's a rhythm to this story, like a heartbeat picking up speed, and it starts with a family on the edge. Sarah's twisting a tissue in her hands, Michael's staring at the floor, and Ethan's slipping away. But Charlie? He's got this quiet determination, his paws planted like he's saying, "Not on my watch. What's coming next is gonna leave you wondering, can a dog really change fate? Let's find out. Oh, and fair warning, you might need a tissue or two. This is about more than a sick kid and a loyal pup. It's about the kind of connection that makes you feel the universe is whispering back. Ready to see how a golden retriever turns a hopeless hospital scene into a story of light and healing? Here we go. The hospital room felt like a tomb that night, the kind of quiet that presses down until you can't breathe right. Ethan Parker, just 8 years old, lay in the bed, his small chest rising and falling like a fragile bird's. The walls glowed a sickly green under the fluorescent lights, and the air carried that sharp tang of bleach mixed with something sour. Fear, maybe. His parents, Sarah and Michael, slumped in chairs beside him, their hands locked together like they could hold back the inevitable. Doctors had just delivered the news. Terminal. Nothing more we can do. And you could feel the hope drain out of that room, leaving nothing but a hollow ache. Sarah kept brushing Ethan's damp hair back, her fingers trembling like leaves in a storm. She'd whisper his name every now and then, soft as a prayer, like she could pull him back from wherever he was drifting. Michael didn't say much, just stared at the monitors, the jagged lines mocking every heartbeat. Outside, rain tapped, the window like a restless guest, and the clock on the wall ticked too loud, counting down to something no one wanted to name. It was the kind of despair that makes you wonder how anyone keeps going. But then there was this one steady thing. Charlie curled up at the foot of the bed. See, Charlie wasn't supposed to be there. Hospital rules, they said. No pets allowed. But Ethan's golden retriever had this way of looking at you. Big, soulful eyes that begged without making a sound, and the nurses caved. His fur smelled faintly of wet grass, a little piece of home in that sterile trap. He didn't fuss or bark, just rested his head near Ethan's feet, watching him like a guardian who'd never clock out. And maybe that's what kept Sarah from falling apart completely, knowing her boy wasn't alone. But could a dog really change what the doctors had already written off? The night dragged on, heavy and endless, with the rain picking up into a steady drum against the glass. Ethan's breathing got shallower, and the machines beeped a warning nobody wanted to hear. Sarah squeezed Michael's hand so tight her knuckles went white, and he muttered something about it not being fair. 'Cause it wasn't. The doctors hovered in the hall, their clipboards like shields, talking in low tones about preparing the family. But Charlie, he didn't budge, and right when it felt like the dark was gonna swallow everything, something shifted, something nobody saw coming. Ever wonder how love looks when it's got nowhere left to go? In that room, it was a little boy fading, two parents breaking, and a dog holding the line. The despair was thick enough to choke on, but Charlie's quiet loyalty cut through it like a knife. Sarah noticed it first, how his ears perked up, like he heard something beyond the rain. What was he sensing that nobody else could? Whatever. It was about to turn this hopeless hospital scene upside down. Charlie wasn't just a dog that night. He was a rock, steady as the rain pounding the hospital roof. While Ethan's little frame sank deeper into the sheets, his golden retriever didn't flinch. Those big paws stayed rooted, his breath puffing. Out in soft, warm clouds you could almost feel against the cold. The room smelled of damp fur now, a wild contrast to the bleach that clung to everything else. And his eyes, deep amber pools, locked on Ethan like he was the only thing in the world. Sarah caught herself staring at him, wondering how a dog could hold so much in a single look. But that's Charlie for you. Loyalty wrapped in fur, refusing to let go. The monitors started screaming then, a jagged chorus of beeps that made Michael jump up, his chair scraping the floor like a gunshot. Ethan's vitals were crashing, pulse fading, oxygen dropping, and the nurses rushed in, their sneakers squeaking on the tile. Sarah choked out a sob, pressing her hands to her mouth. But Charlie, he didn't budge an inch. Instead, he did something nobody expected. He hauled himself, up slow and deliberate, and climbed right onto the bed. His weight dipped the mattress and he stretched out beside Ethan, nose nudging the boy's limp hand like he was saying, "I'm here, buddy." And then, the wildest thing happened. Those beeps, they slowed down. You'd have to see it to believe it. The way the chaos just paused. The nurses froze, their hands hovering over buttons and tubes, and Michael whispered, "What's he doing?" Charlie's tail gave a faint thump, once, twice, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm. Again, Ethan's chest rose a little stronger, and the numbers on the screen, those cruel, plummeting digits, started ticking back up. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm, her nails digging in, because it felt like a miracle was unfolding right there under the flickering lights. Who'd have thought a dog could stare down death itself? But Charlie wasn't done yet. The doctors barged in, all starched coats and furrowed brows, muttering about protocols and how'd he get up there? They didn't get it. Charlie wasn't breaking rules. He was rewriting them. His fur brushed. Ethan's arm, soft as a summer breeze, and the boy's fingers twitched. Just a flicker, but enough to make Sarah gasp. The air in the room shifted, like someone cracked a window to let the storm in, and you could almost hear the tension snap. Charlie stayed put, his warmth seeping into Ethan, and the docs, they just stood there, jaws slack. 'Cause science didn't have an answer for this. Something bigger was at play, and it was only getting started. Ever feel like animals know stuff we don't? Charlie sure did. He wasn't just keeping vigil. He was pulling Ethan back inch by inch with nothing but love and stubborn grit. The nurses started whispering about unexplained stabilization, scribbling notes like it'd make sense later. But Sarah and Michael, they didn't need charts. They saw it in Charlie's eyes, that fierce promise to protect his boy. And as the rain softened outside, a new sound crept in. Something faint, something alive. What was Charlie sensing that turned the tide? The rain had eased up, leaving just a drizzle that hissed against the hospital window like a secret being told. Inside, the room felt different, like the air had thickened with something alive, something you couldn't pin down. Charlie lifted, his head, his ears twitching toward the glass where moonlight spilled in, pale and restless. It wasn't just light. It danced across his golden fur, turning it almost silver, like he was glowing from the inside out. Sarah blinked hard, thinking. It was her tired eyes playing tricks, but Michael saw it too. this strange, quiet energy rippling through. And then Charlie whined, low and urgent, like he was answering a call nobody else could hear. Ethan hadn't moved in hours, his face slack under the oxygen mask, but now his eyelids fluttered, like moth wings brushing the dark. Charlie shifted, closer, his nose pressing into the boy's cheek, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The moonlight stretched long shadows across the floor, twisting into shapes that didn't quite make sense, almost like a hand reaching out. Sarah swore she felt a chill sweep through, not cold but electric, prickling her skin like static before a storm. "Ethan?" she whispered, barely daring to hope. And then, soft as a sigh, he murmured back, "Charlie." It was the first word. He'd spoken in days and it hit like a thunderclap. You know that feeling when the world tilts just a little and you realize something's bigger than you thought? That's what hit the room right then. The nurses, still hovering with their clipboards, dropped their pens and one muttered, "That's not possible." But there it was. Ethan's eyes cracked open, hazy but alive, locking onto Charlie like he'd just climbed out of some deep, dark place. The dog's tail gave a slow wag, brushing the sheets with a faint rustle, and you could almost taste the relief mixing with the mystery. Whatever Charlie was tuned into, it was pulling Ethan back, step by shaky step. Michael stumbled forward, his voice rough as gravel. "He's awake, Sarah, he's awake." The machines hummed steadier now, their frantic beeping replaced by a calm, even pulse. Charlie let out another whine, softer this time, and nosed Ethan's hand again, like he was checking in. The moonlight pulsed brighter for a second, swear it did, casting the room in a glow that felt holy, like a sign from somewhere beyond the charts and stats. Who's ever seen a dog talk to the moon and bring a kid back with him? But that's what it looked like, and the docs didn't have a single word for it. Sometimes you just know when the tide's turned, even if you can't explain it. Ethan's whisper, Charlie's name, hung in the air like a promise kept, and the whole room felt lighter, like a weight had lifted off everyone's chest. Sarah sank to her knees by the bed, tears streaking her face while Michael gripped the rail, staring at their boy like he'd been handed a miracle. Charlie stayed put, his amber eyes glinting in that unearthly light, and you couldn't help but wonder, what had he seen out there in the night that made this happen? Whatever. It wasn't over yet. The hospital room buzzed now, not with machines, but with something electric. Hope, maybe, or just plain disbelief. Ethan's eyes were open, still cloudy but tracking the faces around him, and his voice, raspy as dry leaves, kept asking for, "Charlie." The golden retriever stayed glued to his side, his chin resting on Ethan's chest like he was anchoring him to the world. The air carried a faint whiff of ozone, like after a lightning strike, cutting through the stale hospital scent. Sarah laughed, a shaky, wild sound, and Michael just kept muttering, "He's back, he's really back." But the doctors, they were scrambling, 'cause none of this added up. Tests started piling up. Blood draws, scans, you name it. The staff whisked around in a flurry of white coats, their shoes clicking like a metronome on the linoleum. Ethan's vitals weren't just stable. They were climbing, his color creeping back into cheeks that had been ghost pale for weeks. One doc, a guy with glasses perched on his nose, kept flipping through charts, muttering about spontaneous recovery, like it was a curse word. Sarah caught him staring at Charlie like maybe the dog had the answers his science didn't. And here's the kicker. Every test came back clean, no explanation, just a kid pulling out of the impossible. Charlie, though, wasn't looking so hot. His tail barely flicked now, and when he shifted you could hear his joints creak like old wood. The nurses noticed it too. One slipped him a treat from her pocket, but he just nosed it aside, eyes fixed on Ethan. It was like he'd poured everything into that boy, and now the tank was running low. Michael crouched down, running a hand through Charlie's fur, and felt how thin it seemed, like the light was fading from him too. Was this healing coming at a cost nobody saw coming? Days ticked by, and Ethan kept getting stronger, sitting up, sipping broth, even cracking a smile when Charlie licked his fingers. The room filled with new sounds, the clink of a spoon, Sarah's humming, the rustle of blankets as Ethan kicked them off. But Charlie's breaths grew slower, shallower, like he was winding down while Ethan wound up. The docs ran more tests, poking and prodding, but all they got was shrugs and unexplained scribbled in the margins. Sarah started wondering if love could be measured like that, or if it was something bigger, something they'd never pin down. Ever think about how miracles don't always look free and easy? Ethan's recovery was a gift, no doubt, but watching Charlie fade made it bittersweet. The family clung to every moment, soaking in the boy's laugh. God, that laugh. While stealing glances at the dog who'd made it happen. The vet came. He checked Charlie over and shook his head. No sickness, just exhaustion. Like he'd run a marathon nobody else could see. What was this bond doing to him? And how long could it hold? Ethan was sitting up now, a little wobbly but alive, his voice cutting through the room like a bell after too much silence. Charlie was there, he said, eyes wide and bright, in the dark place. Sarah stopped mid-breath, her coffee, cup trembling in her hands while Michael leaned in, brow creased like he was piecing together a puzzle. The room smelled of warm broth and antiseptic, but there was something else too, a faint, earthy hint, like soil after rain, clinging to the moment. Charlie lay beside Ethan, his head heavy on the boy's lap, and you could feel the weight of what was coming. What did Ethan mean? And how could a kid even know? He kept talking, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them too long. It was all black and I was scared, but Charlie barked, loud like he was calling me. Ethan's hands twisted the blanket, his knuckles pale, and Charlie's ears flicked, like he remembered it too. Sarah knelt by the bed, her voice soft as, "Hun, you heard him, baby?" Ethan nodded fierce. "He told me to come back, Mom, said you needed me." Michael rubbed his face, tears brimming. 'Cause who's ever heard of a dog talking through the void? But that bond, it was humming between them, loud as a heartbeat. The air felt charged, like it was holding secrets too big for the four walls. Ethan reached for Charlie, fingers sinking into that golden fur, and the dog let out a sigh, long and slow, like he was letting go of something heavy. Sarah swore she saw a flicker in Charlie's eyes, not just light, but something deeper, something ancient. It was the kind of connection that makes you wonder, who's really guarding who here? The family sat there, wrapped in the glow of it, feeling the pull of a love that didn't play by the rules. Michael broke the silence, voice rough but steady. "He brought you back, Eth, from wherever that was." Ethan grinned, small but real, and patted Charlie's head. "He's my best friend." The simplicity of it hit hard, 'cause it wasn't simple at all. The doctors poked their heads in, still clutching their useless charts. But this wasn't theirs to explain. Whatever Ethan saw, whatever Charlie did, it was theirs. A thread, tying boy and dog across some unseen line. And it was shaking them all to the core. You ever get that feeling a pet knows you better than you know yourself? That's what this was, times 1,000. Ethan's story wasn't just a kid's ramble. It was a window into something supernatural, a loyalty so deep it bent reality. Sarah hugged her boy tight, whispering thanks to Charlie under her breath, while Michael stared out the window. Lost. It. The room settled into a quiet awe, but Charlie's breathing rasped a little more, hinting at the cost. What had he given to pull Ethan out of that dark place? Ethan was laughing again, small, bright bursts that bounced off the hospital walls like sunlight breaking through clouds. But Charlie? He wasn't keeping up. The golden retriever lay sprawled across the bed, his once shiny coat dull under the morning light filtering through the blinds. The room carried a new smell now, sweet broth from Ethan's breakfast, mixed with the dry, dusty scent of fatigue rolling off Charlie. Sarah brushed her hand over his back, feeling the bones sharper than before, and her smile faltered. Something was slipping away, and it didn't take a genius to see it. Charlie's eyes still followed Ethan, but they were slower now, clouded like a sky before rain. When the boy dangled a sock for him to chase, something that'd usually send him skidding across the floor, Charlie just lifted his head, gave a weak wag, and sank back down. Michael watched from the corner, arms crossed tight, and you could hear the creak of his jaw clenching. "He's tired," he said, but it sounded more like a plea than a fact. The vet had come by again, stethoscope cold against Charlie's, ribs and shrugged. No disease, no injury, just a dog who'd run his spirit dry. How do you even wrap your head around that? The days stretched on, and Ethan kept blooming, color in his cheeks, chatter in his voice, while Charlie faded like a shadow at noon. His breaths rattled now, a soft wheeze that cut through the hum of the room. And Sarah caught herself counting them, dreading the gaps. She'd sit by him at night, stroking his ears and whisper, "You did good, buddy." But good wasn't enough to stop the ache creeping in. Michael tried distracting Ethan with comics, but the kid kept asking, "Why's Charlie so sleepy?" And that question hung there heavy as a stone. 'Cause they all knew the answer was bigger than words. The family started piecing it together. Ethan's recovery wasn't just a miracle, it was a trade. Charlie's tail barely moved now, just a faint twitch when Ethan giggled, and his warmth felt thinner, like a candle burning low. The vet called it emotional exhaustion, but Sarah saw something else in those amber eyes. A quiet goodbye, a guardian laying down his watch. Ever feel like love's got a price tag you don't see till it's too late? That's what they were staring at, and it was tearing them up inside. One evening, Ethan climbed onto the bed, curling up next to Charlie, his small hand resting on that tired muzzle. "Don't go," he whispered, voice cracking like a twig. Charlie licked his fingers, slow and deliberate, and you could almost hear the room sigh with them. Sarah turned away, wiping her eyes, while Michael gripped the windowsill, staring out at nothing. The bond that had saved Ethan was unraveling, now, thread by thread, and they couldn't stop it. What happens when the hero's the one who needs saving? The hospital had settled into a hush that night, the kind that wraps around you like a blanket, soft but suffocating. Ethan was asleep, his chest rising steady under the quilt, while Charlie lay beside him, a quiet shadow growing stiller by the hour. Michael stepped out onto the balcony, the air crisp with the bite of late fall, carrying the scent of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. He coaxed Charlie along, the dog's paws dragging slow across the tile, and under the moonlight, those amber eyes caught a glint, like embers refusing to die. Sarah stayed inside, watching through the glass, her breath fogging up the pain. This was it, wasn't it? Charlie eased himself down, his body sinking into the cool concrete, and Michael knelt beside him, hand resting on that worn-out fur. The night was alive with little sounds, crickets chirping, a breeze rustling the trees, but Charlie's breaths cut through, faint and uneven, like a song winding down. He lifted his head, just enough to nudge Michael's palm, and then, slow, as dawn breaking, he licked it, a final gentle goodbye. Michael's throat tightened and he whispered, "You're the best of us, pal." The moonlight bathed them both, soft and silver, like it was holding this moment for them. How do you let go of a hero like that? Back inside, Sarah felt it. The shift, the quiet that wasn't just quiet anymore. She pressed her forehead to the glass, tears slipping free, and murmured, "Thank you." Charlie's tail gave one last twitch, barely a flicker, and then he was still. The next morning, they found him gone, his body curled like he'd just fallen asleep, protecting Ethan one last time. Michael carried him in, arms shaking, and laid him on the blanket Ethan had clutched for weeks. The room didn't feel empty, though. It felt full, heavy with love that had never fade. Ethan woke up slow, blinking at the daylight, and saw Charlie lying there. "He's sleeping, right?" he asked, voice small and hopeful. Sarah sat beside him, pulling him close, and said, "He's resting now, baby. He kept you safe." The boy's lip trembled, but he nodded, like he understood more than an 8-year-old should. Outside, the wind picked up, scattering leaves against the window with a sound like applause. A farewell from the world, maybe. Charlie's sacrifice had sealed something eternal, hadn't it? You ever notice how the hardest goodbyes leave the deepest marks? Charlie's final breath wasn't just an end. It was a gift, a guardian passing the torch back to the family he'd saved. Sarah hugged Ethan tighter. Michael stood silent, and the moonlight lingered in their minds, a memory of that last, tender Bleak. They'd lost him, sure, but what he'd given them? That was forever. And as the sun climbed higher, they knew they'd carry him every step from here. Ethan was back on his feet now, a little unsteady but buzzing with that kid energy you can't fake. The hospital room had traded its gloom for sunlight, streaming through the window and warming the floor where Charlie used to sprawl. The air smelled of crayons and paper now, 'cause Ethan had taken to drawing, scribbling away with a focus that made Sarah smile. One afternoon he held up a picture. Charlie, big and golden, standing over the family like a guardian etched in light. "He's watching us," Ethan said, his voice steady, and you could feel the truth in it, heavy and sweet as honey. Sarah framed that drawing, hanging it by the bed where machines once beeped their warnings. It wasn't just art, it was Charlie's spirit, caught in waxy lines and a kid's shaky hand, and it changed the room somehow. Michael would catch himself staring at it, the way those pencil strokes seemed to glow when the sun hit just right. Outside, birds chattered in the trees, their calls sharp and alive, and the family started breathing easier, like they'd been given permission to heal. Ever wonder how a dog's love sticks around, even when they're gone? This was it, plain as day. They didn't stop with the picture. Ethan begged to help other animals. For Charlie, he'd say, and Sarah couldn't say no. They started volunteering at a shelter, Michael hauling bags of kibble while Ethan petted every scruffy mutt in sight. The place reeked of wet fur and pine cleaner, a far cry from the hospital's sting, but it felt right, like Charlie's loyalty was rippling out. One day, a skinny pup with eyes like his licked Ethan's hand, and the boy laughed. "He'd like this one." Sarah nodded, tears prickling. "'Cause yeah, he would've." That's how legacies work, don't they? Weeks turned to months, and Ethan grew stronger, racing around, chattering about Charlie like he was still trotting beside him. The family kept that drawing close, a quiet anchor, and started a little fund, Charlie's Fund, to fix up strays. The clatter of coins in a jar mixed with Ethan's giggles, and Michael swore he felt a nudge sometimes, like a ghost of a tail wag. It was healing, messy and real, and it pulled them forward. Who'd have thought a dog could teach you how to keep going? But Charlie did every single day. You can't measure love like that, it's too big, too wild. Ethan's picture wasn't just a memory, it was a promise, a light that kept burning through the dark. Sarah would catch Michael tracing it with his finger, and they'd share a look, grateful, busted open, whole. Charlie's sacrifice had saved more than Ethan. It had stitched them back together. And as spring rolled in, with blossoms popping, outside, they knew his spirit was still there, guiding them. What do you leave behind when you give everything? So there you have it. A story that starts with a hospital room drowning in despair and ends with a family stitched up by a dog's wild, unbreakable love. Charlie didn't just pull Ethan back from the edge. He showed Sarah and Michael what loyalty looks like when it's got teeth and a tail. The air's lighter now, filled with the rustle of spring leaves and the echo of a kid's laugh. But it's Charlie's spirit that keeps humming through it all. Ever think about how the smallest souls leave the biggest footprints? That's what this golden retriever did. Turned a hopeless night into a legacy that's still breathing. It's funny, isn't it? Doctors had their charts, their machines, their big words. But it was Charlie who cracked the code. Love, pure and stubborn, doing what science couldn't touch. That moonlight moment, that quiet sacrifice, it's the kind of thing that sticks. With you, makes you wonder about the mysteries we walk past every day. Ethan's drawing hangs like a lighthouse now, guiding them through the rough patches, and every stray they help feels like a nod from their old pal. Sometimes, the greatest teachers don't talk. They wag, they nudge, they stay. And Charlie? He stayed till the job was done. This isn't just a tale of a boy and his dog. It's a whisper from something bigger, a reminder that bonds like that don't snap, even when the breathing stops. The family's whole now, not perfect but patched up, carrying Charlie in every step, every giggle, every sketch. You can't help but feel it. He was their guardian, their miracle, their light in the dark. And maybe that's the lesson here. Sometimes, The ones with 4 paws show us how to stand tallest. What a gift, huh? Take a second and think about it. Who's been that for you? A scruffy mutt, a purring cat, a critter that just got you. Charlie's story hits right in the feels 'cause it's real, messy, beautiful, and true. So here's your invite. Drop it in the comments. Tell us about that animal that changed your life. Did they pull you through something? Leave a mark you still feel? We're all ears because if Charlie taught us anything, it's that these stories matter. Hit that like button if this got you and subscribe if you're up for more. 'Cause who knows what other miracles are out there waiting to be told. For now, let's raise a quiet cheer to Charlie, the dog who did the impossible and left a family, and maybe us too, a little better for it. See you in the next one, friends.